welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today I have a great guest episode today. I'm super excited to share my story, my interview, my conversation with Diane Carbo. I was super excited to have this conversation for a lot of different reasons, but Diane is a registered nurse. She's had over 50 years of experience supporting individuals and families through all things from illness all the way up to death and grief. So she and I have a lot in common, except I'm not a nurse, don't have that background, but she also had some very personal losses too that we will absolutely get into within the episode, but I will let her share that story because it is hers to share and not mine. But before we get into that, as always, I have to mention, if you would like to support me and this show, you can do so at patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. For this season, season 7, anybody who becomes a patron at the $10 or more a month tiers, you will get this journal. I will send you a copy myself. I just need an address to send it to, and I will send you that. If you just want to buy this notebook, you can do that too. There's a link in the description for merch. I've got notebook stickers, a t-shirt behind me, a mug. So please feel free to check that out. But with Patreon, I use that funding specifically to provide pro bono support within the community. I have a very young person I am helping who is completely on their own, and they don't have the support system that they need for their end-of-life experience, and they don't have money with which to pay for my services. So I am giving limited services at this time for this person, so you can help support me in that. I would love to give her more time. I would love to do more of this type of stuff too, and I need your help to do that. So if you go to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula, you can check that out. But that's enough of that. Let's just get into today's episode. But that's enough of that. So let's dive into my beautiful conversation with the amazing and wonderful Miss Diane Carbo. All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in again this week. I am so excited. I have another amazing guest episode, and I'm super happy to introduce to you Miss Diane Carbo. Diane is a registered nurse with over 50 years of experience, and I'm not going to read her whole bio because I can read that, but I want Diane to tell you. I like to let my guests introduce themselves. So Diane, why don't you tell my listeners just a little bit about you and your history with nursing and grief and all of the things therein?
Well, I come from a very large dysfunctional Irish family. On one side of my family, and the other side, my dad's side, it's very small. And I could tell you, when we're talking about death and dying, I developed a different perspective of death and dying than most people have. And that's because when I was very young, I can still remember my great grandfather Bachman. He had what they called at the time last rites 7 times.
Oh my God.
I can remember being a very young girl, probably 6, 7, 8, probably 5, 6, 7, or 8. And every time he would start his active dying process, my little aunts, my great aunts, they're my grandmother's sisters, they all lived together, and they would bring out the tea service, the silver tea service, and the priest would come over. And the kids, we would be running around because there were several grandchildren, and we were there all the time waiting for him to pass. We all sat vigil.
Yeah.
And I can remember to this day sitting they had this cherry wood, because it was a very old house in Pittsburgh, a cherry wood stairway, and we had the pocket doors.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah. So I can remember we would open it up and peep in to see what was going on while we were sitting around for my grandfather. That was my first experience. So I learned about death and the process of death and dying at a very young age. When I was 7 years old, Joey Buffo was one of my classmates, and he was an only child. He developed leukemia, and we all went to a small Catholic school. Well, Joey died, and his family, his parents were Italian, and they had the wake at the house. His body was there. Um, and I can remember feeling like I went over there by myself because he lived around the block and we used to cut a path through the ballpark, and Joey's house was there was a little fence and you would walk between the fence, and then Joey's house was right there on the left. So I would go over there, and I just went over, and it was a very strange experience because I didn't he looked like he was sleeping, and he was very young. And I don't know if you know anything about Italians, but in those days, even then, they would have, and I don't know that many do it now, but they had professional mourners.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh, the
Hmm.
sounds and the wails. And
Hmm.
I remember not feeling bad for Joey having lost his life. I felt bad for his parents.
Yeah.
And then that winter, my grandmother passed. So, and it was a bad winter, and Irish celebrate life. They don't mourn. In fact, so I
Yeah.
grew up knowing that when somebody died, we were all going over to their house 2 or 3 days in a row. There was food and laughter and remembering and drinks. The adults would drink alcoholic beverages, of course, and we would just remember the family, and that's something that I thought was normal. You
Yeah.
celebrated their life.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my mom dies when I'm 17. What
Wow.
happened was she had gone in for gallbladder surgery, and they did a chest x-ray before she went into surgery, and they found she had lung cancer.
Oh
So she
no.
goes to she has the surgery, and then she starts her cobalt treatments in those days. Now, I became a caregiver at a very early age.
Hmm.
I what the treat the And there are a lot of young people out there in their early teens or in their early 20s that are caring for a parent at
Yep.
home.
Yeah.
I'm the oldest of four. Dad worked 2 jobs, so it fell on me to
Mhm.
be the mother of my brothers and sisters and my mom's caregiver. And it was really hard.
Yeah.
Moments where she had a thoracotomy. It's an incision in your chest, and gallons of fluid would come out of it. And
Hmm.
here I am, this 16 and 17-year-old girl, terrified. What am I going to do? All
Yeah.
I did was keep pushing forward. And her skin was burned in the chest, and her back was terribly burned from the cobalt. So I
Wow.
cared for her. And we were so excited when she started improving and feeling better. But here's the thing I want people to understand. My dad would never let us talk about my mom. We weren't
Really?
allowed we weren't allowed to bring up death. We weren't allowed to bring up the C word, cancer. So we had to pretend that everything was the same when it was not.
Yeah.
And it's made me, it was not a good thing for me to deal with.
Yeah.
But that men in those days, you just ignored everything. You just
Right.
stuffed it down and ignored everything.
Hmm.
That's just how they coped, or
Yeah.
didn't cope. You know, they
Right.
they so um so my mom gets a goes to the oncologist. It's Christmas time. I'm going to school directly across the street at West Penn Hospital School of Nursing. I'm a diploma grad. And so I'm in my first few months of nursing, and she lets me know that I'm going to have she's going to pick me up after school. We've got Christmas shopping to do to finish up. I said, great. Well, it turns out as she's coming home from she left the doctor's office, the oncologist's office. They told her, Louise, you beat cancer. And she was so excited. She says, she told my friend that she saw, they had interacted. The
Hmm.
doctor knew my uncle, my dad's twin, and he was so excited. He said, Larry, she's doing great. It's going to be awesome. Well, on the elevator on the way down, after she was told she beat cancer, she threw a pulmonary embolism and died in intensive care that night.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she died from the complications and the side
Yeah.
effects of the treatment. And
Hmm.
I've seen that my whole life. So I have a
Yeah.
very different view of things.
Hmm.
Um, I went into nursing because in those days you had a choice between nursing or teacher. And I really thought I was going to be a teacher, and I would have been a good one. But I had done candy striping and volunteer at the hospital.
Yeah.
So I got to experience that. And then with having to care for my mom, I thought I can do this. I knew
Yeah.
I could when I dealt with the things, the ugliness of the care.
Hmm.
Um, I knew I could deal with it. So I went to nursing school. In fact, people wanted me to drop out because they thought I should be staying home, taking care of my siblings, helping my dad out. But
Hmm.
my mom was so proud that I was going to be a nurse. She was so excited
Oh, yeah.
that uh, that I thought, oh, you know what? I need to do this. So I moved out of the dorm. So much for college life or nursing school life or whatever, life away from home. I moved
Yeah.
home and I became the parent and the enforcer. We had to get very organized, and my mom taught me so much.
Hmm.
Before I knew how to cook, clean, do laundry. I did all that because she, the oldest of four,
Yeah.
and we had lots of siblings or cousins come and visit. So I knew how to do all that. So I got my family organized for that. So and I've done different types of nursing, and I've been at the bedside of many.
Hmm.
And I I am always surprised, but it's rampant in our culture how people are so afraid of dying.
Yeah.
And it's not always the person that's dying that is afraid,
Right.
because over a while you process things so differently.
Hmm.
And well, I will tell you that, you look at things differently as people are going through their death and dying process. And it's usually the fear of death um, is more common for, now some people are afraid to die, but there you go through a death, you go through a process as you age. And I've learned this, I've seen it myself, I'm experiencing that, where you look at your life and there's a time when you just I have chronic pain.
Hmm.
I also had a son that I lost to suicide, which we will also discuss. But I have to tell you what I've seen through my years of death and dying and people going through their process is those that are ill eventually come to terms with the death and dying process.
Yeah.
And it's the people that around them that don't want to lose them, and
Yeah.
they are trying to hold on for that. So
Yeah.
um it's really hard. In fact, I've been I worked I worked hospice, I worked at a
Hmm.
cancer center. I did home care and helped a person at home. He wasn't on hospice in those days. It was very early in the years before hospice.
Hmm.
Uh, well, actually, hospice around, it was just wasn't that
Right.
available at the time. And this young Italian man, oh, he was such a handsome, good-looking guy. Had, and I was young. I was just a new mother, and he was at home and he was dying, actively dying, and I went through the agency and did 12-hour shifts with him. Well, he died on my watch.
Hmm.
And the family, I tried to talk them through everything. They were just heartbroken,
Yeah.
just devastated. And I felt so bad for them. But, one of the things that people do when a lot of cultures do is when somebody dies, I don't know if you've come across this yet, Nikki, or not, but at the bedside, people want to hurry up and open a window. You got to let the spirit out.
Yeah. Hmm.
And the family wanted to do that. They had their own their issues with death and dying, and I felt so bad for the mother. I've never felt bad for the person that left us,
Hmm.
but I always find myself really brokenhearted for the people that are left behind.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I
and
know
you
what it's
you
like.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you had mentioned something earlier that that struck with me is how it seems to be the family members and the loved ones that are a little less accepting of the impending death than the dying. And
Absolutely.
I see that in almost every single person I work with. Because even
Yes.
if like at diagnosis or when I start working with them, they're scared, they have a lot of
Yeah.
uncertainty, but they get to a point where they are accepting and they're
Yeah.
ready to a point, and their family members, like I've had people up to the day they have died still not admit that their loved one is dying.
Oh, well, I'm sure you know this, but I have people, there's a Facebook page, and I've had clients tell me this, hospice is killing my parent.
Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, I hate that.
I know, well, you know what?
Not true.
The thing that's wrong with that is hospice doesn't get paid if they died.
Right, right,
But
right.
that is the perfect example of people not being willing to accept the reality of death.
Hmm.
And I can tell you from the nursing point of view, I have seen some ugly things happen. People
Sure.
keep their family members alive for different reasons, and they're very
Mhm.
disturbing. It could be financial, they still want that social security check. I know that's
Yeah,
awful, but it happens.
right.
And or they're going to lose their place that they're living because it's the family members, and they're going to lose their home, so they go to terrible extremes to
Hmm.
extend a life when it's
Yeah,
cruel and unusual
yeah,
punishment because people don't understand the death and dying process.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how I got involved in my nursing and my life. And I do have a different perspective on death and dying than most people, and I'm very open. Since my dad, I'm told I suffer from complicated grief. And like I said, I lost my mom at a young age, and then I lost my son. My son Jeff was in the military, very smart young man. He was a Korean linguist. He could read and speak and even write Korean. And
Wow.
he developed a severe chronic pain condition. It's called chronic regional pain syndrome.
Okay.
And it's also called the suicide disease. And he went through some tough, really challenging times. I have nothing kind or good to say about the VA medical delivery system. The active military is awful as well. They're
Yeah.
abusive, and there's a reason why 22 vets a day
Yep.
complete suicide, and they have for decades,
Yeah.
since Vietnam, I'm sure, or
Hmm.
Korean War. It's just been really bad.
Yeah.
So, uh, I'd like to talk about, if it's okay with you, grief
Yes.
and
That's what this
process.
whole podcast is about. So yes, absolutely.
Surprise!
Absolutely. I would love that.
I agree. My grief for my mom was overwhelming.
I bet.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I coped at the time with that grief by my mom was so proud I got into nursing school. She was so excited. And I had to choose. And I'm a people pleaser and a caregiver. So, this was really hard for me. When my mom died, everybody wanted me to stay home and stay and help with the siblings. And I couldn't do it. I said, I will go back and forth, which I did. And it was so challenging and draining. Out of we had 200 students start our class. Only about 70 of us survived. So
Really?
even through everything I went through, I survived. But I think my way of coping was just to push it down. When I do a presentation with people on grief, I take a punch bowl and I fill it with water. And then on top of the water, I put table tennis balls, the light, airy little balls.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
put them up. And then I tell people, push, see this, the balls are your emotions.
Hmm.
Now, we all tend to try to push them down. So I give them this experiment. Take your hands and push those balls down. And what happens? They keep popping up. Different ones keep popping up.
Yep.
And that is our life on grief.
Yeah.
You can't push and push and push.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I did for a long time with my mom. I still to this day around the holidays have a sadness about me. It's not depression because I do suffer from depression as well, but it's just a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't
Yeah.
understand when you love deeply,
Mm-hmm.
that loss is always going to be with you. You
Yeah.
know, people talk about closure. There really isn't closure.
No,
It's
it's so funny you say that. I was just writing a blog post this morning on what a myth closure is.
Oh, it is. And when people say they want closure, I'm thinking, good luck with that.
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah, yeah, because grief just evolves.
Yeah.
And I think my son Jeff, I got a phone call in the middle of the night. His brother called. Jeff was in Austin, Texas. He was at a house visiting with his cousin. Well, he actually was staying at his cousin's house while they were away. And he had been in and out of Tacoma, or not Tacoma, that's where he was in Waco, Texas, to the mental
Okay.
health unit there for the vets. And he had been in several times, and they didn't do anything for him. In fact,
Mhm.
the things that they let him drive home when he was on meds that say don't drive, and it was a far distance from to Pflugerville where his home was at the time.
Wow.
There were just so many things that went wrong. But when I got the call, I got so violently, I was by myself.
Yeah.
And I got a call. My youngest son said, "Mom, we just heard that Jeff killed himself." And I can remember just sobbing so hard and breaking down. I can still cry about it even today. It has 14 years. Um, I started vomiting and I was sick like for 24 hours. I was all by myself. Nobody was around. Nobody was there to comfort me or to talk to me. And that was my response to grief. And I'm sure it was a culmination of not just losing Jeff, but my mom and the
Yeah.
unresolved issues there.
Hmm.
Um, I will tell you, it hit me so hard that I had a website at the time, aginghomehealthcare.com, and I was moving it over to Caregiver Relief, which is what I have now.
Yeah.
I actually took off. I couldn't do anything for 3 years.
Really?
3 years. I couldn't think about anybody else's pain. I couldn't,
Yeah.
'cause when you're in a role like we are, Nikki,
Mhm.
it is you are dealing with people in pain every day.
Yeah.
And I work with caregivers and they struggle so
Yep.
much. And so that is another whole I just didn't have it in me.
Hmm.
In fact, I can tell people grief doesn't change, or it doesn't resolve. It just evolves into something different. I can tell you, I've had some experiences that people might want they'll probably have these too. Your brain knows on one level that the person's dead, but
Yeah.
on another level, the brain just sees things, and
Yeah.
it doesn't relate. I was literally visiting one of my neighbors. I stopped by her house. Her son and his wife were here, and she was standing outside, and I was just, we were just chatting, and her son came out, and he was this big, burly ginger with the beard.
Oh.
And for 1 second, now this is 5 or 6 years after Jeff died, for one brief second, I thought it was Jeff because he
Mhm.
was a big, burly ginger.
Yeah.
And he always had a beard when he wasn't in active duty because he hated shaving. And I literally started sobbing as soon as I saw.
Oh.
It's a terrible reaction.
Yeah.
And but it's a common reaction. We
Yeah.
have people, things play games in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had several instances like that where I thought it was Jeff for a moment,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. I
Yeah.
did have an experience, though I do feel that they come back and tell us things and signs in some ways. It was July 21st is Jeff's birthday, and I live in Myrtle Beach here. And I try to get out on the beach, especially on, I love to get to the beach every day. I'm not always able to, but Jeff had, uh, it was his birthday and we had been in the water together. So that's my connection, oh, our cells are still there, in my
Mm-hmm.
mind. And it's just a nice way to tip tap, put my toe in and remember him. Well, I'm walking and this young man comes up to me. He's in a bike, a sand bike, and says to me, "Ma'am, would you take a picture of me with the pier behind me?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Yeah, I'm doing a run, a ride, and an event for soul suicides, soldiers that complete suicide." I I started sobbing right there, this
Yeah.
young man,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh. Oh, I got
it,
chills.
yeah, it was like, so I do believe there are moments where our loved
Yeah.
one, I don't hear them talking to me or anything like that, but I just have
Yeah.
senses that there's something there. And I can tell you that the young man and I shared a moment because he had lost his best friend to suicide, a soldier. So, those things are important to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's so many myths about grief, that people think that one of the most insensitive things I've experienced is, well, aren't you over it yet?
Oh my God. Yep.
I'm like,
Mm.
what planet are you on? How you don't
Right?
get over some things?
No.
And while they say I have complicated grief, I have to tell you that that's just our medical society putting a tag on something.
Yep.
It's grief and loss. It just happens. Uh, Grief is like if you take a piece of paper, a plain piece of paper, it looks so pretty and nice, and you crinkle it up. Think of
Mm-hmm.
that as that's death, and
Yeah.
it's your experience of loss. Now open it up.
Mm-hmm.
You see all the crinkles and everything is
Yeah.
not perfect. Well, that's your life.
Yeah.
It's up and down. There's going to be waves and
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
And there are times when you won't even be aware that it's an anniversary date, a birthday or something,
Mm-hmm.
but your body just feels
Yep.
different.
Yeah.
I know for me, the holidays are really hard. They've always
Mhm.
been hard, even when I had my children. Now, do I when I was young, we had Christmas right after my mom died. She died December 17th.
Oh my
I
gosh.
I still felt a need for my siblings to make sure my siblings had Christmas and we did
Yeah.
something normal. I cooked dinner and all of that and try to make it. Was it a sad Christmas? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But we still did it because life goes
Yeah.
on.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. So I want you to tell us just briefly here a little bit about your caregiver group, your caregiver website and all of that, because you and I both have such a heart space for caregivers.
Yes.
Because you've been in that role for so long. I'm in that role now as a death doula, but I want to hear how, what are we doing? What's the support like over
Well,
there?
Caregiver Relief, I'm launching a new product very soon. It's called myvitalvault.net. And
Ooh.
I'm excited about it. I used to have a home healthcare notebook, and I had that. The home healthcare notebook was a system to help the family caregiver or the senior start
Yeah.
getting organized.
Yeah.
And I had all this like a person-centered care profile and stuff like that. So my site is Caregiver Relief is supports family caregivers. I am a dementia care specialist, so I do specialize in that, but
Mm.
I also help survivors or people that are surviving cancer go through their process. I think what I do most is I help seniors age in place
Mm-hmm.
and then support their family caregivers navigate the medical delivery system. And I always hook them up with if they're willing and open to people like you for the
Mhm.
end of life
Yeah,
because we have a silver tsunami
mhm.
coming and it's here. It's
It
here. We
is.
don't
It's
know.
starting. It
Yeah,
is.
it's already here. It's been here.
Mhm.
And we have not enough youth to
Mhm.
care for our seniors. So
Yeah,
we are in, and I want to share a statistic with you that
please.
63% of family caregivers become seriously ill or die before the person they're caring for passes.
Yeah.
So I lose 2 to 3 caregivers in my group every year to
Mhm.
either chronic illness where they can't continue to care for somebody
Mhm.
because the stress is real, or they become so overwhelmed with all the stress and pressure that they
Yeah.
die. I have a story I will tell you. I had a caregiver. His name was Ron. He was out in California. He was a gay man who cared for everybody in his family.
Mhm.
And he had done it for like 20 or 30 years. So here he is. He has his 90-year-old mom and he's caring for her. And he says, I'm just ready for her to die.
Yeah.
And, I want people to know that's a normal
Oh,
response.
yes, I fight with that all the time because when I have caregivers come to me and they're like whispering, like, I feel so terrible. I'm just like, I'm ready for them to die, but I can't say that. I'm like, yes, you can. You're allowed. That's a valid feeling.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And it's called anticipatory grief.
Yep.
And you shouldn't feel guilty. I can't tell you how to feel, but
Right.
guilt's a wasted emotion. But you have to look at the emotions. What is the root cause of why you're feeling that
Yeah.
way? And
Yeah.
it's often a loss of fear of somebody.
Sure.
But
Yeah, it's not that you want your person to die, it's that you want all the suffering to stop.
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And you're suffering as well because you're not
Yeah.
taking care of yourself. You're not doing
Mhm.
the things that you want to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, but he got very ill and he was just putting his mom in a nursing home. And I've seen this over and over again. He gets put into the hospital, ends up in intensive care and dies. And that has played out many times in my role over the last
Yep.
20 years of the caregiver finally resolving that
Yep.
they're going to put somebody in a caregiver or on hospice, and then they finally feel like they can breathe, and they uh, develop a condition that causes them to pass.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why caring for caregivers is so important. I know you
Absolutely.
know that. I'm preaching to the
Yeah,
choir, but for all my
I know.
listeners out there,
Yeah.
you have to like you might be thrust in a position at some point, and I know you will want help. If there's somebody in your life who's a caregiver, give them the support you are able to give within reason, because oh my gosh,
Well,
reasons you just explained.
I really push and promote building a care team partner approach to care.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really important because caregivers feel as if they failed if they ask for help,
Yep.
or they have uninvolved siblings and extended family members that not only don't help, but they
Yeah.
judge them and
Yep.
they beat them down and dismiss them like
I
they're
see
doing
that
something
so
special.
often.
Yes,
So
yes.
often.
And those very same people will not visit or will limit their visiting. But as soon
Yep.
as that person dies, I'm telling you, this is cruel. It's terrible to say, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
They're like vultures picking bones. They will empty out a house before you turn your head and say, oh my God, she's not even out of in the van to go to the mortuary.
Yep.
And they're already picking over
Oh
everything.
yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's astonishing
Yeah.
to me how people are. And then the caregiver, it's usually the primary caregiver that's left broken
Yep.
and
And with
um
nothing.
and with nothing often. That's why I also, just a tip for you that are out there, I encourage you to get a family caregiver contract in place.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, a family caregiver contract. I know people find that offensive, but you have to treat this as a job.
Yeah.
And in that contract, not only do you are you able to set boundaries and limits, but you're able to say to the extended family members
Yeah.
and uninvolved siblings, on these days I want off, you either financially pay for somebody or
Mm.
physically be here to help,
Yep.
you know. But you can ask them, even if they live far away, because we're a society where family members are all over now,
Yep.
those that are in long distance can contribute financially to getting outside help when you need your break. But you also have the ability, you can ask them to do research for you on community resources. The internet's there, so even if they're in California
Yeah.
and you're in Myrtle Beach, they can do the research on the
Yeah.
resources here that might be beneficial.
Yeah.
But it's also have somebody who knows medications, or is willing to organize medications, even if they're away. They can't, another location. They can do the research on the meds. They can create a spreadsheet for
Yep.
you. They can tell you when they're going to be need to be refilled, and they can keep on top of that and help others. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things you can do.
Oh, yeah. Totally agree. And you can hire somebody like me to help you sort that out too.
Well,
And
you know
Diane's
what?
got all
You
those
know what? I
resources.
will tell you that one of the things that I'm finding that is so cool that death doulas are doing is the life celebrations
Yeah.
before you die.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I actually have a gentleman in England, my good friend's father-in-law. He's in his late 80s,
Hmm.
and he um he had a life celebration last year, and he decided he's going to do it again because he got so much bottles of the Jameson. He says, I think I'll do this again next year.
Yeah, I just took a trip to Ireland last year. So yep, had my share of Jameson while I was there. But that's beautiful. I
Yeah,
love that.
thank you.
Awesome.
Oh,
Oh, so I have a tradition as I get towards the end of my episodes on my podcast that I will pull a random card from the death deck. I don't know
I
if you've heard.
love those cards.
Yeah.
Oh,
So this is something I do at the end of every episode. I pull a card out and I will
okay.
I will have you answer it and then fair's fair, I will answer it as well. So,
Okay.
our this one's too easy because this I feel like I shouldn't even read this one.
Oh, I'll pull
We'll do
another
it
one.
anyway. We'll do it anyway. All right. Have you ever been with somebody while they were dying and how did you feel?
Oh, poor Lord, have mercy.
I think that was this whole episode was you talking about that.
My dad. I was at my dad's bed. I was at the bedside of many people, but I was with my dad as he passed, and how I felt was he was waiting for my brother to come home. My brother was on vacation, and he was in a coma, but he waited for Paul to come home from his vacation. And Paul was home, came into the house, was there an hour. But what I did with for my dad while he was dying, after Paul came home, you could tell his respirations were more shallow, more
Mhm.
less frequent. My dad used to say a prayer, a St. Joseph's prayer, and I got his prayer card out while he was passing. I had my hand on his chest so I could literally feel his heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I whispered that prayer into his ear, and I could feel, and his heart stopped. I could feel it, his last
Wow.
heartbeat. Um, and I watched his last breath. Now my other siblings were around, and
Yeah.
my family, but that was a very touching
Hmm.
moment for me because my dad was a challenging man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But his name was Lee Smith. And I said to him before he died, I said, Dad, I can't believe you're doing this to me now. As if it's all about
Right.
me.
Right. Right.
But I love my dad, and he had a beautiful passing at home.
Oh. That's thank you for sharing that. And for myself, yes, obviously I've sat with people as they were dying, and how I felt has varied. Now, the most personal losses I've suffered, like the people closest to me, my family members and friends that have died, I wasn't around. Most of those were sudden.
Mhm.
So it was I found out after the fact. So I can't really judge with those. So
Yeah.
the people who are dying that I've sat with are I wouldn't call them strangers because they're people I've worked with for a period of time, but
Yeah.
it's almost all of them pretty, have been beautiful in their own way.
Yes. Yeah.
There have been a couple that were a little graphic, shall I say, or troublesome for the families to witness because, as you know, a lot of things happen as the body is dying, a lot of
Yeah.
noises and things that can be unnerving for the family. And I've seen some go out kicking and screaming, to the last
Yeah.
day. But overall, there's a beauty to all of them. Like I feel
Yes.
like much like birth, there's a beauty to death as well. So
Exactly. And, I think that we're a culture that fears death.
mhm.
Like I can see just from how I grew up, going to Joey's funeral. I
Mhm.
went to my grandmother, all my grandmothers, my great aunts. We were always at a funeral, but I don't look at death as an ending.
Yeah.
It's an ending for us.
Yes.
But I don't know what the future brings, but I'm willing to I don't have any fear of death. How I die may be a fear.
Yeah, that's a different story. Death and dying are two different things.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
right. Diane, this has been lovely. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your stories with us and telling us all about your pathways through your grief and into working with caregivers. So, if you take just a moment and tell my listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and websites, and I'll put links in the description, but if you just want to tell everybody that, that would be
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you. Diane Carbo. I'm at www.caregiverrelief.com. That's CareRelief.com. And you can find me on YouTube. On my website, I've got podcasts as well, and
Yay.
my social media there.
Awesome. Yeah. And like I said, I'll put all that so you can click away to your heart's content. So, Diane, thank you again so much. I'm
Thank
so
you,
glad you were
Nikki.
willing to share your stories with us.
Thank you.
All right. Another huge thank you to Diane for bravely sharing her story with us. And I know she shared her story with other people, and I'm just honored that I got to hear it too. I listened to it live while we were having the conversation. I listened to it while editing. I listened to it while rewatching one more time through, and I still got choked up every time I listened to bits of her story. So thank you again, Diane, so much for sharing this with me and with my listeners. If you have a story of grief you would like to share with the world that you think might provide comfort to somebody out there, please reach out to me. You can find me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can find me there, and then my podcast is on that site as well. So nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast. You can find information on guests who have been on my show, links to their books if they have books, links to their information or like their websites and everything. Diane's information is down in the description of this podcast, so go check that out if you would like to get in touch with her for any reason. I hope you do. And again, for season 7, if you become a patron on patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula at the $10 or above tier, I will send you a copy of this journal because it's just a nice thing for me to do for you, for doing something amazing for me. Like seriously, this little journal is the least I can do for you to help support me in providing pro bono care out in the community. You can also find me on Substack. I'm over there. I'm not doing social media much anymore. But yeah, so find me at Substack, nikkithedeathdoula.com. You get your merch there too. Get that great t-shirt behind me, or you can just buy this journal. You can get some stickers for your water bottle, all the things. But that is all. Thank you so much again for tuning in this week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.